We're going to dig a little bit into Morgan's process, and then we're probably going to talk about Rob Zombie because I also see that on the agenda. So thanks for adding that, Lacey. I'm just kidding. She didn't add it. I added it.
That's why we're all here now.
Welcome to episode 4 of the ETCH CAST. Today, it's just two of us, me and Morgan Galen King. How are you today, Morgan?
I'm doing good, Phil. How are you, man?
Well, I've got a cardigan on. As previously stated, I'm covered in donut dust. So we're working at a 8-9 today, I think.
I have to say, that sounds pretty good.
It's pretty good. How is the weather in Halifax?
It's great. I mean, it's that time of year where it's really hot during the day. If the minute the sun is gone, it's freezing. So, which is
nice.
A lot of what the fall is like here. Where you're like, wow, it's still summer, but then the minute sun, darkness descends, it's you're like, I needed 3 layers. What was I thinking leaving the house in a t-shirt?
I'm always waiting for darkness to descend. Let me tell you just a real quick anecdote, and then we can talk about our intimate history together. So I was just at an event at my kid's school. They made zines, like a zine making thing, and they had this bucket of pens where you could like fill out a Post-it and like put a Post-it on to like say good job. So I'm over there by the pens. There's a grandma there. She's got a Post-it and she's got a pen, and she's like, "Oh, this pen has no point." Now, I don't know this grandmother. I don't know whose kid she is. And I looked at her and I said, just like life. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is actually, this is not the forum for my, bleak, cynical sense of humor. So, like I say, we're at an 8-9. I got to bring some nihilism to the school event. So here on episode 4, Morgan and I are going to talk about our history of working together. We're going to talk a little bit more about the making of Spine of Night. We're going to dig a little bit into Morgan's process, and then we're probably going to talk about Rob Zombie because I also see that on the agenda. So thanks for adding that, Lacey. I'm just kidding. She didn't add it. I added
it. That's why we're all here
now. Okay, so once again, I'm Phil. That's Morgan. We're going to talk about what we do.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a while too. I mean, like I said, maybe late 2012, early 2013. It seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been working on short films in my living room. Mongrel and Exordium, and then Exordium ended up on Machinima. No one remembers what Machinima was. You don't. The internet's memory is not.
I barely knew what it was at the time.
I think they started they had that Red versus Blue, which I've never watched, but it was like a show made inside of Halo.
Right.
So I think they got their start with that, but then we're trying to expand to do more, independent art projects. As probably the let's make jokes inside of Halo shtick got old, so they're trying to go legit, and it approached me about putting the second Mongrel short, in a film festival they were putting on in LA, which is more like an art exhibit. Like you go in and they'd have little booths where you watch short films on TVs. But I had been working on Exordium, which I was like, this is my masterpiece. And I was so clear, I was about a month left to work on that. And so I hustled. It was almost an entirely sleepless month, as I was like, I've got to do everything. This is my one chance to get my vision in front of people. And, turned in Exordium. It went well. People posted it around on the internet. And I presume someone cool sent it to you, Phil.
Yeah, so I got Exordium, which is the short film that would obviously lead to Spine of Night. I got it from a friend in Rick Lacey who worked. He's an animator by trade, and at the time he was working, I think, on Venture Brothers. I'm not sure. He was somewhere in that the company that was making Venture Brothers, at least. And he knew my tastes as being sort of, liking fantasy, but liking kind of harder edged, non-Tolkien-esque fantasy to harken back to that Sword and Sorcery podcast we were on. And he sent it to me. I wish I had the message, but I'm pretty sure it was something like, "Oh, this seems like something you'd be into," or like, "This messed up thing seems like something you'd like." Um, and it was. I thought it was amazing, and my initial instinct was like, "Oh, this is the type of fantasy that I love," and I never like you just never see it on screen anymore. It's just totally, it's sort of psychedelic, and it is also because of the rotoscope style, sort of more grounded in like a human form, but also like out there, and it like feels, like generally in genre, I think what nerds are looking for, or maybe just this particular nerd, is something that like, knows what it is and isn't trying to be something else, but then is also similar enough to other things that you can understand what it is, right? There's always this line between like cliche and innovation that I think anything in genre has to walk, and I thought it walked that line perfectly. So I found you on a website called Facebook. Is that how we did that? I think
That's probably what it was
yeah,
at the time. Yeah.
yeah. I wish that I was joking. I didn't actually remember what Facebook was. Like, I don't remember what Machinima was, but I do know what Facebook is.
Oh, I mean, someday, may we all
Someday.
forget.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, we've told the story, in a couple of, in press cycles before, but it was.
And now we're telling the real version, so stay tuned.
That's right. You've never heard this version before. Our people who have raptly followed all of our interviews for decades. But I remember getting the email, and like, I think my wife wasn't entirely sure what I was doing. She was supportive, but she was like, he's just in the corner on his computer doing something weird. And, I got the email, or, Facebook message, then an email that was like, "Do you want to make a feature length film?" And I was like, "Yeah, obviously." No one says no to that question, because, I mean, how do you ever get anywhere in life without a ridiculous amount of hubris? So, but she asked me, she's like, "Do you think you could do that? Like, write a film, like draw a film?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I can. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm here for." And she was definitely like, "Yeah, okay, dude, whatever." So, good luck with your project. And yeah, it ended up. I mean, you could ask Letterboxd how successful we were, but I think I creatively thought it came out brilliantly. I love the film. I love it. I love what we did. I think I think it's great. I still love it to this day. I've seen it a bunch of times now, and I just think it's great. I don't think anyone works on anything that doesn't have things they would tweak. But like I still am really in love with The Spine of Night, and I think that's lucky. I think a lot of people don't always come away from their films wanting to rewatch them and being pleased with them.
I mean, it's the only thing I've ever worked on that I've managed to sit through after it was completed. So that's just for those who don't know, like, once I'm done with a thing, notoriously, I won't watch it again. Like, you watch it movie countless and countless times as you're doing like the post sound and the color and all these things. But then, and it's ultimately because I'm a coward. But as soon as I know that I will not be able to change it, I can't watch it again, because there'll be so many. I just know there'll be things. And I'm like, oh my god, no! Like, why was that decision made? So, but it's fine. I've watched, like in that context, I think 2 times. And it wasn't an awful experience. In fact, it would be quite the opposite. I think obviously there are things I would still tweak, but it's, yeah, I agree.
Do you think some of that is because it was a collaborative effort to such an extent? I feel that way, where I'm just like,
plausible creative deniability. You
well,
mean?
right? You're like, well, look, I wouldn't have drawn it that way, or I wouldn't have used that line. It does drive me nuts when I watch it, that when you were doing some of the additional like background dialogue recording, that the one guy refers to the trebuchet as a catapult. It just kills me every time.
So listen. I think every catapult, I think it's not incorrect. It's not as precise, but I think it's not incorrect, because I know it bothers you, and so I went and I looked just to see. So it's not as correct as it could be, but I don't think that it is categorically incorrect. just on that, like notably, that happened to me, which is why I'm sorry I did it to Morgan on Europa Report, which a movie that I wrote and was trying to be as scientifically accurate as possible. At some point during the ADR process, the additional dialogue recording, somebody added a line. I believe the line is they land on Europa, the moon of Jupiter, and they are taking like readouts, like temperature readouts, and somebody says that the temperature outside is absolute zero, which obviously it isn't. like absolute zero is a theoretical temperature it's not measurable. That means like there's no whatever. It's not for those who care. The temperature on Europa is definitely not absolute zero.
Put it on the IMDb trivia. We need everyone to know that wasn't Phil's fault.
I also like how this conversation just completely jumped 10 years of production work right to the letterbox. You're like, we met, and 10 years later, letterbox.
Well, I mean, we made everyone watch. We on here. We did Spine Summer. We've done the making.
That's true. If you want to know what happened in those 10 years, watch the making of Spine of Night, available on etchstudio.substack.com. So let's talk a little bit about like just our general creative processing, because we don't really talk about that in Spine Making Up. I mean, we do a little bit, but like, from your perspective, like Spine, well, there's two ways we can talk about it. One, we can talk about how Spine worked, but since then we've collaborated on a number of things, none of which has gotten done yet. But there have been like how many things? 5 things, 6 things we've taken pretty far down the road and not actually been able to, achieve launch, as they say. I
mean, I'm still sitting on all of them with the expectation that someday someone will just back up, $5 million in a truck and dump it on the lawn, and we'll be like, okay.
The sad thing is, like, on the scale of budgets, 5 million isn't that much, really, and I think we could probably do most of them for that. I mean, like, not just one of them, like multiple of them for that amount of money.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always been sort of the threshold with these. Like, we do we're in a lot of pitch meetings. We pitched a lot of stuff over the years. And it's almost always, I mean, there's the two hard things of animation are either it's going to take 7 years, like the Spine of Night did, to draw, because with a small team, that's just how long it takes if you don't have a huge workforce of college students, which is how it turns out most independent films are animated.
Yep.
Or it takes millions of dollars because, like the studios we've talked with, I mean, they have employees and healthcare, and like it's a whole apparatus to get a film done quickly. Like you have to, so it costs a lot more money. So it's either a small team working very hard for a very long time, or a big team working very hard for a short time for a lot of money. So, it's been sort of this quagmire we found ourselves in, I think, where there just aren't a lot of animated feature films at all. And it's largely because it's just, you start at about $1 million to even have a shot at it, I think.
Yeah. And I think there's an issue too. When we encountered this on Spine, well, so it's part of the genesis of Spine, really, is like me thinking, oh, nobody's going to give us money to make this like hard R adult animated film, so let's just make it, right? And that's sort of how that started. But then since then, I mean, that opinion of mine has kind of been borne out. Like it is, especially in America, people don't seem to understand what adult animation is or could be, and it is a thing that I have beat my head against now for years and years. I strongly suspect someday it will change, but it is not. It's not happening anytime soon.
I mean, you told a story once, and I mean, maybe I'll get it kind of wrong, but you were talking to someone about the Spine of Night and that it was adult animation. They're like, oh, okay, well, does that mean that like my 9-year-old can watch it? And because when people think of animation, they're thinking, oh, this is for 3 or 4-year-olds, and then adult animation, must be for like 9 and 10-year-olds.
It was like a sales agent. We were trying to sell the movie, and we were like, it's adult animation. And she was like, oh, adult animation, it's so hot right now. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. And then she was like, oh, can my daughter watch it? And I was like, how old is your daughter? And she was like, oh, like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And then I believe she said, well, she's seen Moby Dick, or not, sorry, not Moby Dick, Pinocchio. I was thinking of the whale, Pinocchio, which is, on the scale of Disney films, classic Disney films, certainly the darkest, I think. I mean, I guess it depends if you include Black Cauldron, but if like classic era, it's certainly the darkest. But it's not. I mean, Spine of Night, it's like full frontal nudity. People are getting cut in half. Like there's a categorical difference there that just was not. I don't think that she could conceive of.
I mean, I will concede that even adult animation is. I mean, with the Spine of Night, I mean, I think it's still a love letter to us at 14 or 15. Like it's not. It's not like an emotional drama about the like your the family, immigrating during a war. It's not, it's not like.
But like people don't make those movies as like non-animated anymore either. Really, I don't think. Yeah. So how do you like? Let's talk about our various rejections. How do you handle every time we put all this work into a project and then it doesn't come to fruition? How does it affect you, Morgan?
I mean, pretty poorly, if we're being honest. Because, I mean, it's hard not to look at the state of the industry and be like, look at the absolute garbage being made. And, like, we're asking for crumbs relative to the industry. But this, they're still not there. So it's always frustrating in that sense, where I know that this would be an amazing thing for us, for our, like, the people we work with, and presumably the people who like the things that we make.
Yeah.
That a relatively small investment to them, I mean, so we had. Well, I don't want to jump too far from the question, but yeah, I mean, I don't take it well. I mean, I put a lot of work in it. I think there's maybe one project that we've worked on together where I was like, I'm only doing this because it's abstractly interesting to, but like where my heart was.
And notably, that was the one where I was like, oh, I bet we could sell this, and then we didn't. So, I mean, we didn't. To be fair, we never actually pitched it. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, I wish them luck. But most of the things we've done, I put all of myself into. Like, we were working on this adaptation of Carl Edward Wagner's Cain that made it pretty far. I mean, you can like the Variety listing about how they're going to make it still up there. So, I mean, I wish them luck. But we took it pretty far, and we didn't, we wanted to be paid to write it, but I had already, for my own edification, written the screenplay. So, like, I mean, and edited it for years, and like comprehensive character design for way ahead of where it would be in the pitch price process, just because I want to understand the whole thing. I feel like you make a better script if you know what everything looks like, and you can start thinking about the logistics of costumes and stuff. So, I mean, a lot of work we paid for, you paid for, a test trailer from like a partner studio that came out awesome. And, we took it as far as you possibly can. And it's you can see the finished thing, what it would be. And then for it to never come to fruition is just like, man, it's not even that. The disappointment is almost that we can't share it with anyone, because it's just really cool stuff that,
I mean, it's an interesting, I guess, thing to think about too, in that it just isn't, it's like, when you pitch these things, it's almost like there isn't even really a place to properly pitch them to, like the streamers have animation divisions, obviously, but like what we're interested in doing is, again, just to keep using this term, like almost categorically different than what they're set up to do. And so it's like, it's almost just like two ships passing in the night. Like they don't think they get it. And that's, it sucks, but it is what it is. I mean, I think a lot of, to bring it specifically to ETCH, like a lot of the reason ETCH exists is to try to create a company that allows us to make the weird, interesting things that we want to make, right? So, like, the project, we shouldn't really say much about it, but the project that Morgan and I are currently working on, it's largely Morgan more than me because I'm on other projects at the moment. It is sort of like taking pieces from a number of rejected things and Voltroning them into this like condensed core of rad fantasy shit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, we started this whole, the whole secondary project. I mean, we're calling it Tombs at the moment, but it's been Tombs forever because we started like
I
the
think
first
originally it was
draft of
something
it.
else completely different, though. Like, I mean, it was.
Yeah. I mean, the DNA is still in there, but it
Yeah.
was like we were 2 years into the Spine of Night when we had the offer to develop a series.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we wrote this whole, I thought, pretty cool thing. But that was like kind of a riff on, the name is from like the Tombs of the Blind Dead, the old, was it Armanda Sorio
Mm-hmm.
film, which is, I love that whole series. And it was and it was one of those that like sort of exists in the public domain because no one ever preserved the copyright. So there's a million versions of it.
Yeah.
And it just has, but so the idea was sort of like, what if we took that idea and made it, just a bigger setting? And that is still like in the background, I think, of the script we have now, but very, very distant. I don't think in a way you would ever tease out. But it started but we opted not to do it to finish the Spine of Night because it was like, do we put a pin in the film we're making to, try to do this show at the same time? And I think ultimately we just made the decision that we could just to focus on the film, which was almost certainly the right one. It probably wouldn't have actually happened as excited as they were about it on the call.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so since then, like we shaved off the Blind Dead elements, but kept some other elements, and then, as I say, I'm just like, well, at some future date, we'll talk more about it. But like, there are elements of Kane in there. For a long time, Morgan and I have wanted to do an adaptation of Moby Dick, which we can talk about in a second. But there's definitely Moby Dick DNA in Tombs. There's a love of multiple subgenres of metal is all built into there. It's a real, like, in my mind, I don't know about yours, but in my mind, it's like Tombs should be, it should just be like a catch-all of anything that we think is cool and should be should be in a project. Like, find a place for it in Tombs because it's the thing that we, that I know we can make. So, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, well, let's get a pilot done and see how long it takes. But yes,
yeah.
I'm looking. Hopefully, we'll get into like the animation testing phase pretty soon. I feel like the scripts are quite close to being producible.
I have to read them. Podcast listeners, remind me to read the Tomb scripts. I'm going to use our listenership like an AI assistant. So, well, we haven't really. Sorry, the question was creative collaboration. How does it work? How do we do it? How does the soup get made?
I mean, often with these, we have a call, and I'm like, "Here's this dumb thing I was thinking," which is like, what if we adapted the Tombs of the Blind Dead? We mash it up with Berserk, but like the '90s Berserk anime, like the really simple, barely animated one, which is sort of like, could that be producible? And and you'll be like, you'll either think, oh yeah, that's a great idea, or that is neat, but I don't see it often. And even when it's a wild idea, sometimes we had about 1 month where we were seriously considering, like, how could we remake Lucio Fulci's Conquest? Right. And
that was a great month. Just to say, I think we wrote, there is a thing, right? Like, we wrote a pitch for that, right?
Oh yeah.
What a great month.
I made a mix of songs we could put in the score for the finished project. That is still my go-to writing mix. Like 5 years later, it's just like, spectral fantasy synths and stuff. And so it's my Conquest mix. I put it on all the time when I'm writing. I think ultimately the project problem there was, I mean, we would be hitting the same issues Fulci did, is that, we'd be working with very little money to try to do a big epic fantasy thing. And, could we do it better than Fulci? Probably not. Maybe in some elements.
We could do it differently. I don't know that we could do it better. And by virtue of us not being as, notorious, I think we probably would have been resoundingly dragged across the coals of people who like Fulci lovers, such as they are, the world over, would have been like, I prefer the original Conquest.
Yeah. I mean, which is fair. but I think it still would have been cool. I like what we were doing, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway,
Whole other
let's
thing.
see how that Deathstalker remake does.
Yeah. Good point. Wait, so we have a call. Usually it's you saying to me, here's this crazy idea. So like, so then, well, let's take Moby Dick as an example, because that's one that we always bring up sort of as a joke, but honestly is really a thing that we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do. So my recollection of how that started is that you were talking about like old literary adaptations, um, and maybe also talking about Cormac McCarthy, specifically Blood Meridian, which we would never be able to get the rights to. And then I was thinking about, oh, how Frankenstein gets adapted all the time and Dracula gets adapted all the time, and there must be other super famous works of literature, um, that don't get adapted all the time that are ripe for something. And that led to the thought of Moby Dick. I think I went to Moby Dick in my own head because it's clearly so inspirational to Cormac McCarthy. So I was tracing that like literary lineage there back. I think that's how that happened, right?
That's how I recall it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we both, I mean, got really into Moby Dick. Like we're like, we should probably read this book, which I had attempted a few times. Like I had it assigned, I think twice in my academic career, and bounced off of it both times. I think that's not a rare story. But this time I got like an annotated edition of the book. So you had, because it's so full of deep, deep references to things, and it was, and so I got a lot out of it. I really, really enjoyed the read, but also was blown away at how, I mean, basically, it's never been adapted anything even close to what the book is. Like almost every adaptation is a readaptation of the 50s film adaptation, the Houston version. And it's just not the story of an obsessed sea captain that is tormenting his crew. Like it's just not that. It is like gothic existential horror. Like he's clearly like like his paganism is a parallel for like Satanism, and he's trying to kill God or the incarnation of God.
Through the mask, Morgan.
Yeah, he's gonna go punch through the pasteboard mask, which is like the black void of night, to get to God, and he can't do it, and so he's like, I gotta kill his biggest creature, his biggest representation, and it's not even. I tell people this all the time because I'm like, you gotta read Moby Dick, but like it is definitely like, not only was Dick a dick reference back then, but it's definitely like him killing God's dick, because, and it's on like chapter 106, they barely mention it because it's gross, but like he stabs him, his peg leg breaks and he falls on it, and it like ruins his penis. and that's the moment that tips him over. And like in the beginning you're like, oh, he's hiding and he's healing from an injury in his cabin. He's like hidden away for the first third of the book, and you only find out later that that's what happens. Then that his quest is basically God took his dick, he's going to take God's dick. And so it becomes this huge like existential dick measuring battle, which I just think is amazing.
And you might wonder why when we pitched that, people were like, wait, like, you want to do what with with Gregory Peck's famous character from the 1950s? Yeah, I mean, it so I'd never read it either. I'd read other Melville before. A similar experience. Like it's I guess a lot of I mean, probably most classics ultimately do earn their place, but like Moby Dick for sure. Like it's a stunning read and kind of overwhelming. And I read it once. And then I took a class. I found an online class at the Rosenbach Museum in Philadelphia. So I had to like sign into a Zoom every week, and like there was a professor. We were reading it together, and it was it's great. I mean, I can't recommend it highly enough. Although I think that ultimately, the last time we talked about it, somebody in that class had this really interesting observation about how the book itself, I'm going to fumble the observation, but it was like that the book is an exploration almost of like ways that one might write a novel. Like it is, among its the many things that it's doing, one of them is like it's about like novelistic techniques almost. And the book is like, even like by our standards today, I would describe it as highly experimental. Like there are chapters that are written like a play. There are chapters that are just like these crazy, sort of scientific descriptions of different types of whales, and it is, um, but then it also is like constantly comparing whales to types of books, to folios. Like it is like making this sort of, it's almost like metatextual in a way that is like acknowledging that it is itself a book, and therefore there are all these weird techniques in it. So I think the last time we had a real conversation about it, I was like, well, if you were really going to adapt Moby Dick, you would have to take that same philosophy, and the way that you made it would have to be also an exploration of like different ways to make a movie. Like like if I'm like a real true adaptation, it would need to be pretty like experimental, like maybe almost like Naked Lunch. I mean, not
Yeah,
exactly, because Naked Lunch is sort of, it ends up being a biography of Burroughs, but like in the way that it is like a movie about the book. Anyway, I don't know. It's a puzzle.
well, I think it's a great idea, and I look forward to tackling that whenever the finances arrive. I mean, there's a part where they kill another whale just so that they can hang whale heads from either side of the ship, and the ship is like made out of like bones and like occult carvings. Like it's such an absolute horror show. I mean, it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house on the sea, and
Yeah.
it is so awesome, and it is crazy that we
Also,
just
like,
have this very frumpy, like boring, dry version of it in everyone's mind.
there is also, just to bring it in line with like our sort of fantasy interests. I mean, like at no point, well, maybe at some point way back in human history, maybe. But like at no other point in human history, like did you really like go out and hunt monsters? Like, like now, and maybe I'm doing whales dirty there, but like it's sort of true. Like you're going out on a boat and there's a giant fucking thing under under the water that's like, that you're gonna stab with like swords and spears. Like it is from a fantasy perspective, or I guess fantasy horror perspective, like it's exactly the thing. Like like it's exactly the thing. Yeah.
And certainly, you look at old maps, all the sea monsters are either whales or like squids of some sort, but mostly whales. Mostly, like the here there be monsters stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Um, so maybe one day, or maybe one day, what we should really do is like take our draft of the script and fill it full of illustrations, and just like publish it as like as like a thing that's like, here's a thing we could never make. Wouldn't it have been great? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather actually make the thing.
I would settle for people just reading it with like new eyes,
Yeah.
because I feel like it so often ends up adapted where it's like he's crazy because he doesn't want to go along with the capitalism of the company that wants the whale oil. Like Starbuck is the villain of the book, whereas he's like is presented as the hero, the rational hero in all the adaptations. But it's definitely like, no, what a horrible exploitative pursuit. We're doing something real here. We're killing God, and it rules.
I've got my own expletive like project. And it's an existential quest to murder the deity that controls us all.
Yes. So look forward to that in Tubes, whatever we make.
Now that your 9 or 10-year-old daughter would definitely see and love. So just for the record, if you're keeping track, that one's for the kids.
Yeah, we're going to have some real K-pop bangers in there. It's going to be we know that's hot right now with the kids. So
K-pop whale hunters, people would love it.
Look, okay, it's time to get off the call. We got to go. We've got pitch. We got to go pitch this.
Oh my God, K-pop whale hunter! It would be so much fun. So stupid. What? Let's talk about genre a little bit. So, we on our first podcast we talked about like the history, our own history with horror and fantasy and etc. Like, what do you like? Talk more about that.
I mean, I've always sort of smushed them together into one big thing in my head. I think we have a really, really old interview where I talked about how I thought like often horror did fantasy better than fantasy does. Like there's just something about, I mean, all these monsters, like there's something very sterile to me about like, I always think about like when in the like in Tolkien when they like are getting, like riding on the giant birds. Like a giant bird is a horrifying image. Like that's just terrifying. Like the depth of like the feathers. Like they're not going to be comfortable. They're going to be, you're going to be in them. They'll be like, stalks of like if you really zoomed in on anything.
But also, imagine the size of that beak and those claws. I mean, that's just it's horrifying. Yeah.
And anytime you see like, oh, I guess I've got a bird mount, like it's World of Warcraft or something. Like it just is so not fantastical to me. And like I think you can look at it too in terms of how many fantasy works start with a map. Like I've always been really proud that we didn't start that way with the Spine. Like we didn't have a robust world history. We didn't have an established map. It wasn't this sort of world building exercise. Like we always wanted to leave unexplored corners, like set up the idea that things were older and that there was more outside of the frame. But like actually planning it out, it feels like, well, that's not fantastical. You're not discovering anything. The world is known. And like you've categorized all the monsters and all the spells, and we know all that
it's
stuff.
It's such a weird thing. We've done many interviews where I complain about fantasy, I guess, but I'm going to do it again. It's such a weird instinct, right? Because it's like, here's this fantastical, amazing world, and your first instinct is to be like, here it is. You can understand it now. Like it almost feels like a subtext of the fantasy genre is like not a desire to know. Well, yes, a desire to know, but then also an answer that says, yes, it is knowable. And I think that is, I just don't understand it. I don't understand why that's the thing that we do in fantasy. Like it should feel open and weird and like you should want to know, but the answer that comes back to you from the genre should be, it's unknowable because there's always more to know there. Like there's always more, like it's imaginative and open, not closed and timelined,
Yeah. Well, and horror is so good at that, like it's
exactly.
left ambiguous, it's occulted, and it's, everything is like intentionally unknown. Everything is in shadows and everything is barely seen. And I love that. So I mean, those things sort of merging together, I think is really at the core of like all the genre stuff that I like, but it's hard. I mean, when the Spine of Night came out, people kept asking us like, do you think this is a horror film or is this or not? Like I think there was some debate about, not to go back to Letterboxd, but about like how to tag it. People always, it'll show up on people's horror lists and think this isn't really, I watched a horror movie for Halloween. This isn't really a horror movie. And I'm sure Shudder, who ultimately is the streaming platform that it's on in North America, at least, they're like a horror thing. And I think they were like, well, this isn't like Creep Show, but I think they haven't really known what to do with it because it straddles genres so much.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's in my mind the best genre always straddles genre. But it's totally true. I mean, it's not a horror film really, and I think for a fantasy fan, because of the I was going to say fascistic control of the Tolkien estate, not estate, the Tolkien thing. Like people don't, when you say fantasy, they don't picture anything like Spine of Night. Even though to me, it's almost a fantasy movie, full stop. Like there are horrifying things in it, but like to me, it's a fantasy film. But I do think, to your point, like people try to engage with it as a horror film almost because it doesn't feel like fantasy to them. Even though, again, to me, it's like that's what fantasy looks like. It's just not the type of fantasy that you tend to find.
Yeah, at least not in film. I mean, I think
exactly.
You point to books, certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Kane, for example. I mean, Kane's a great example of like it's a little sci-fi. It's a little like biblical. I mean, he's technically, sort of the biblical Kane, and it's certainly horror. I mean, it's full of horror.
Yeah, should drag Jordan onto this podcast to talk more about Kane. I know he has our friend Jordan who plays Galsur in Spine of Night has or had. I don't know if he still does it. Had his own podcast all about Karl Edward Wagner, but we should just drag him on this one and make him talk.
I mean, it was his fault that I started working on Kane in the first place. He was like, "You guys should do Kane." I was like, oh, "Okay," and then, but he was right. I really loved it. It also exists in the realm where like Moby Dick. I mean, you're like, we've got to make this exactly like the author's vision. It's the only way to adapt it because it's so brilliant. Whereas like Kane is scruffy, and there's a lot of ways you can look at this and be like, this is good, but I bet we could make this better. Like he wrote it as a 16-year-old,
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other movies you think that skirt that line between fantasy and horror? Can you think of other in film?
Oh man, I mean, I guess you can look at like,
I mean,
I think,
Conquest comes to
yeah,
mind.
I mean, Conquest for sure, Conquest for sure. Um, oh man, I wish I had made a list. I could probably spend some time and really put together.
Well, so I was thinking about Clive Barker because I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
he's a person that skirts that line. Although, like when you think of Hellraiser, I mean, I think it's pretty solidly a horror film. But underneath that, I think you can sense his like fantasy instincts in terms of like just like what the fuck is a Cenobite? Like it
yeah.
isn't, it is. And then like a Nightbreed, I mean, for sure, Nightbreed is
Well, I
is
mean, Rawhead Rex for sure.
yep. I
Yeah.
love Rawhead Rex. Uh, that's going to be what lurks in my queue when we get there. um, but then I mean, that beyond that, like he's written books that really are like really real blends of fantasy and horror, like Imagica, and like The Great and Secret Show and oh, Neverland, whatever. There's a bunch of them, but they don't generally get adapted to film. I think probably because there's this weird slippage between genres that confuses people. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess like probably some of the other like early '80s fantasy stuff, like um, yeah, like I think the original Deathstalker does that, but only because it's so grimy and so sexually uncomfortable that it's that it is. I don't think the intention was for it to be horror, but it definitely sits in that place.
Well, I mean, Conquest is a great example where it's almost like the tonal mismatch of what's going on is so weird because it's like half of the movie feels like almost a children's fantasy show, like a Hercules: The Legendary Journey
Yeah,
level fantasy stuff. But then, I mean, it has one of the most disturbing deaths right at the beginning of the film, almost ever captured on film. It is a lot.
Yep.
And then, like, the end goes really hard. But then the middle, you're just having like a fun little adventure with some little short guys in weird fantasy costumes who like shoot webs. It's almost like a Power Rangers fight, and it's so weird.
It's so weird. I mean, this is the thing. It'll probably come up multiple times on the podcast, but like the older I get and the more, quite obviously I've consumed far too much media in general in my life. But like, it's almost like I only like movies now that are complete tonal mismatches. Another potential good podcast guest, Oren Gray, who's a really great writer. He writes horror and he also writes like movie reviews. And he comes here usually for the Necronomicon, the weird fiction convention that happens here every couple of years. So we hang out. And the last time he was like, "Oh yeah, I think what's going on here, Phil," because we were talking about our taste in movies, and I was like, "Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, obviously brilliant." Like, and then we like there were a couple of other like comparison points, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think what you really like ultimately are like completely like movies that are tonally schizophrenic and that are kind of like from a perspective not your own failures." And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. Like at this point I really only respond to things that are like, this is a wild swing and I love it. But
I mean,
like, yeah,
I've been like The Exorcist 2's number one
yeah,
defender
that's a good example. Yeah,
forever,
yeah, yep.
which I mean, famously Mark Kermode's worst film of all time. Um, he seemed to kind of like The Spine of Night for what that's worth, but I mean,
I don't know that I ever listened to his review.
it was his very last episode for the BBC.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was more like I saw this thing, it was all right, and then moved on. It was a very short mention, mostly because I think he was doing a short episode to be like, I'm leaving the BBC and come find me on YouTube.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he famously, Exorcist 2, worst movie of all time, and where I think it's, I mean, just subversively fascinating. Like you could argue whether or not it's successful ultimately, but I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, like the success of the thing almost, I mean, it matters to you. It doesn't like for a lot of stuff I watch. I'm not really like, that's not why I'm watching a thing really. Like I'm sort of watching it to be like scandalized isn't the right word, but like I just crave things that feel like they came from so outside my perspective that I would never make a thing like that. And that's like really I think what I'm looking for at this point, at least. Not sure what that says about me, but probably nothing good. At some point in the future, we should talk on this podcast about my favorite Letterboxd review of all time, which is a review, or maybe I'll just talk about it right now. I'm not going to read it because it reveals too much about my taste. But it's a review of a Cat 3 Hong Kong film called Ebola Syndrome, and it's a 5-star review of the film, and it ends with the line, "Why am I like this?" And I identify with that review. Not why am I like this, like why am I like the movie, but they listed all the things they like about the movie and then how much they love it, and then it just says, "Why am I like this?" Like, yeah, I see myself in that review, in that review completely.
Well, I mean, to sort of circle back to what we were saying earlier, like it's so hard to make anything weird and
Yeah.
at the scale that a film takes, like just the resources it takes to make a weird film. I mean, you could shoot shot on video stuff with your friends that is bizarre and cool, but I think to like hit anything that's sort of mainstream adjacent and also weird, it's a miracle when it happens. So I mean, every time you see those films, you're like, this is awesome. It's awesome that they could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you too. So, everything you do, have done, are these crazy long projects that you completely devote yourself to? Like, how are you?
Oh, I mean, I think the Spider Night made me crazy. Frankly, it was awesome. I've never it was like the challenge of a lifetime. At the time I'd call it like my Everest to people. I was like, this is the thing I'm going to do. It's going to consume my life for 7 years. Yeah. It's going to be like physically and emotionally taxing. And it's my dream. And it's the thing I want to do. It's this impossible task to draw a feature length film. It's just a thing. The number of people on this planet that have done it is short. It's a small list.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to do it. So it was all consuming, but in a way that it probably does change you. I mean, I didn't hardly leave the house for, almost that whole time. And then when we were actually finishing it, it was the COVID lockdowns. Yeah. And so I couldn't leave the house. And it was, I got, the amount of like music and film that I ingested during those years, like I think changed me philosophically as a person, just as a creative person. It was a wild experience. And there's just something about doing something really, really hard and really, really big that's appealing. I mean, you can only do so many in one lifetime. And eventually you're old and you die on a mountain freezing, and after you eat your companions, and which is probably where this ends up. But
is that the goal?
I mean, maybe, I don't want to, I don't want to die watching TV, rewatching Taskmaster for the 10th time. So. I mean, I love Taskmaster.
That's the TV series you'd end up dying with Taskmaster.
I mean, probably. It has been. I mean, there's 30 seasons if you add all the international versions together. So, like, it is. Anytime my wife and I are like, I don't know, what are we going to throw on tonight? We don't. There's not a lot of shows we both care about, and and we're always like, I guess we could rewatch an old Taskmaster season. Anyway, I love it. It's sweet. It's nostalgic. It's a thing we do, but it's also, I'd like to feel like, my carpal tunnel ruined my hand because I was on, year 11 of never finishing The Prison of Death, the sequel to The Spine of Night.
Yeah.
If that's how I go, I mean, I died like I lived. How did it change you?
I don't know. In my head, I have always been exactly the same as I am now. That's probably not true. In fact, it's definitely not true. But it's hard for me to quantify or qualify a change. I mean, it taught me a lot about like large project or like lengthy project, organization and producing. I think ultimately, like, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have been comfortable doing before we started Spine. That I'm just like, okay, I know how to do this. Like it's.
I mean, I think we've learned that nobody wants to sign on for a 7-year project. I mean, for sure, like no one would voluntarily be like, yeah, sure. I mean, maybe an Avatar sequel or something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, totally. And I think it, just like with any project, you sort of gain different little skills that you didn't know that you needed or didn't know that you weren't going to have that you didn't have, and that's been great. But it has, I mean, it's much more affecting your life than mine, obviously, because you're the one hand drawing every single frame, and I'm the one that's like, yeah, it looks cool, like it's and I'm like, no, it's a catapult. Don't worry about it.
I mean, this is, I think, probably it. I mean, my longest creative relationship I've ever had, though. I mean, like, I feel like it's been awesome.
Oh yeah, mine. I mean, other than Will, but even in Will and my like creative collaboration, it's not like, there have been periods when we were off working on different things and et cetera, et cetera. But for sure, like this is yeah, absolutely, it's great. I have no complaints.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to people. I'll be like, oh, so Phil and I were talking. They're like, who is Phil? I'm like, it's a long story. I was like, but he's this guy I talk to all the time, and we talk about,
Morgan lived in my house a couple times. For like, how long were you here on your way up to Canada? Was it a month? No,
it was like, I think like 6 weeks. Yeah, we had this weird window where we sold our house, but we couldn't move into the apartment. Like, we had to sell the house when the buyer wanted it. Like, we weren't going to make it. And yeah, so my wife went down, took the dog, and went down to stay with her family in Virginia. And I was like, well, I got to keep working on the Spine of Night, and I don't want to set up my workspace at my in-laws. And also, that doesn't sound very fun. So I was like, I got the perfect idea. Phil and I will go work on the edit, and I'll keep drawing in his basement. And bafflingly, he was like, yeah, great idea. And so I just lived, but it's a lovely basement.
It's an okay basement. I mean, you survived.
It's a moist basement. I'll say that. It's moist.
Yeah, and it has its own bathroom, at least own bathroom and shower. So like, you a little bit have your own thing, but it's yeah.
Get a lot of spiders in that shower though. I don't know if you've or a regular shower in your own basement, but it does. The spiders. You're like, I was just in here. How did you get in? The spider
situation is a situation. We also have those. I just call them creepy crawlies. I think they eat the spiders. Those long.
House centipedes, man. They are. We had them like crazy in Philly, and I have drawn them into so many things. They creep me out on a existential level. There's a King Mongrel spinoff that I outlined at some point, and like the big final boss in that in the story is house centipede god that these guys are worshiping, and it rules. But those things creep me out so much. It's mostly that they're so tall, that the legs are so tall that the shadow they cast from any light source makes them look 4 times bigger than they are, because they're just way up off the ground. Creepy. I'm sure they're great, but I hate them.
I hate them too. There was one on my paper towel rack in the kitchen. I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, what? like why did you think this was a good place to hang out? Terrifying. Okay, so we're about to do what lurks in your queue, but first we need to talk about Rob Zombie. I need to know your last episode. We recommended the Munsters to April. What's your top zombie picture?
Top zombie picture. Let me bring up the whole thing right now, because because I feel like if we're going to get into the filmography, I want it present. I mean, House of a Thousand Corpses is definitely where I started with his films, but like, I was a fan of his music from way back. So like, I think he's almost more known as a director now, but I'm old enough that when he first started doing films, I was like, it was almost a joke. They're like, oh, what, this guy who makes the songs is going to be a big movie maker now? And I don't think he was treated very seriously, even by me at the time. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. And then now I look at it, and I'm so impressed with his dedication to his like very singular vision that he for all the variations in his films, he's got a very specific vibe, very specific interests. Okay, looking at it now, like, obviously The Devil's Rejects, I think, is like the best made film. It's certainly the one that, if you're going to show somebody one of his films, like, that's obviously the accessible one. But in terms of favorite, and I'm sorry to Exorcist 2 everybody here, I think Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is amazing. It's an amazing film.
I was about to say, you wouldn't recommend that one, but now, okay.
Yep. Sorry, got to do it. It is the first one is too, even the extended cut is just too dedicated to like being a grimy remake. Like it's like a very edgelordy remake of the original that doesn't do enough that's interesting and different. Like didn't need him being bullied as
I hated it the first time I saw it, that first one, and then I did a big full zombie watch / rewatch whenever it was, probably during COVID. And upon rewatch, I, yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot, but your point stands. I mean, it doesn't quite do enough different, but I liked it a lot the second time I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have come to like it more, but the second one is, you get anything with Brad Dourif in it. I'm a huge lover of Brad Dourif, but also like it's just psychedelic and weird. Like it is a dreamy, more than any of his other work. I think it's really just, I don't know. It's off in its own head and tangents, and it's really interested in like composing weird visuals. And I just think and there's the part in the beginning where she's like, it's at the hospital escape part in the beginning where she's like being stalked by Michael Myers, and she's hiding in like the little security booth while it's pouring rain outside. And the way he like shows how scared she is that he starts, like, Michael Myers starts stabbing through the walls from impossible angles. Like at first you're like, it's regular slasher stuff, but then he's just like coming from everywhere. It's like he couldn't have been on the other side of the building that fast. He couldn't be coming from that angle. And it becomes like, it's nightmarish in a way that nothing else really is in his filmography.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think my general take on both of those, but the second one in particular is almost like part of the creative project was like slashers are notorious because, at least in my mind, because they're like, they're horror movies and they're about horrible things, but there's a sort of a titillation and a sort of like fun, and you kind of are like, yeah, it's kind of fun to watch these teens get killed. And Halloween 2, to my mind, is like, oh, what if it wasn't fun at all? Like, what if this was as absolutely awful as it really would be, and not that it's dedicated to realism, but it's more, to your point, more dedicated to just like no, it is actually a horror film. It's not like a fun slasher thing. It's not, you're not going to laugh, you're just going to be like absolutely dragged through the through the mud and the grime. Yeah,
well,
it's a good
what
pick.
is I think I know the answer, but what is your favorite of his filmography?
I don't know if I'm curious what you think the answer is, but my answer is actually House of a Thousand Corpses, because I think it is with a number of asterisks on other movies, but I think it's one of those movies that the first time I saw it, I didn't quite like it, but I've seen it so many times, and every time I go back to it, I like, there are things I don't like about it at all, but like there's so much to what we were just talking about in terms of like the types of movies that I like that movie is doing. Like it is wild. Like it's clearly a first movie. There's like all these ideas thrown at the wall. Many of them don't work, but I just love the feeling of like, this is just a shotgun blast of every crazy idea that Rob Zombie thought should be in a movie. And it's just like those weird interstitials, like that guy by the graveyard doing that crazy, like, I love that shit. Like I just love it. It's because it's so weird and nobody makes movies like that, and it's so much fun. I would put an asterisk by Lords of Salem, which I think is interesting because it's ripping from same thing we said on the last podcast. A lot of his work, like Tarantino's work, you can sense that they're pulling from 70s exploitation, a certain type of 70s exploitation. And Lords of Salem feels like a pretty conscious effort to make something like Ken Russell or almost like Kubrick or something. It's like not handheld and grimy. It's like static shots and sort of this I don't know what kind of mood you would call, but it's a different mood. Just a word of warning: if you have a problem with white girl dreads, then Lords of Salem is not for you. Tried to get my wife to rewatch it with me, and she can't handle it. So,
I mean, look, it's been part of the zombie brand since the beginning.
I know.
White guy,
you're either into it or you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been Rob Zombie Corner for episode 4. We'll see if we get back to it with
a recurring feature.
Rob Zombie Corner. Okay, let's do what lurks in your queue. Morgan, I know what are you up to? What you watching? What you reading?
I've had a busy week. My mom is in town, so we could continue litigating when she showed me Gremlins. As brought up on episode 1, it's a recurring drama. she points out I was 7 when we moved into that house that the nightmare takes place in. So, when I saw it and when the nightmare were, the window between them is big. But so I haven't done a ton of watching of things this week. I did finish Borderlands 4. I've been a fan of those games for a really long time. I think they sort of have been through the ringer in terms of like cultural thought sentiment towards them. It's getting kind of long in the tooth as a 15-year-old kind of Adult Swim era show where it's very much speaks to my age, I guess. But anyway, I finished that last night. I thought that was pretty fun. And if you like those kinds of games, it's a good time.
So this is not to harken back to Zombie Corner, but I love the movie Funhouse by Tobe Hooper. So I rewatched that 2 nights ago. Highly recommended. Sort of a similar vibe to a Rob Zombie thing, although different in many ways. Tobe Hooper is just the best. I just love that movie so much.
I'm sure Zombie loves that film, though.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I'm going to continue a little bit of a Tobe Hooper train. There's a couple of those that I haven't seen, a couple that I would like to rewatch. So that's definitely.
Well, you got to watch the snake one. Was it Venom?
Yeah, Venom. There, and then there's the one where Night Terrors, where it's a wild movie where Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger plays the Marquis de Sade.
That movie's insane.
That movie's completely insane. Yeah. You'll be unsurprised to hear I'm way into it. So yeah, right now the queue is Tobe Hooper nonsense.
Awesome. Well, that's a great way to start October.
Exactly. Yeah. So specifically, my wife and I were talking about how we need to rewatch Funhouse, and I was like, we were going to do it on October 1st. so we did. All right. Well, that's the end of this episode. I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank everybody for subscribing. Thank you to Lacey for helping to produce this podcast. Sorry for being so unruly at the beginning of the episode. And join us next time when we'll have another special guest.
If you've made it this far, welcome to the shadows. Keep the stories alive by following us on social media channels at ETCH Film. Want even more chaos and behind-the-scenes strangeness? Subscribe to our Substack at etchstudio.substack.com. A special thanks to our Substack subscribers. Your support doesn't just keep the lights on, it fuels this podcast and every oddball project we conjure. You're the reason we keep telling stories that shouldn't exist, but somehow do. From all of us at ETCH, thanks for listening. Stay curious, stay weird, and we'll see you in the dark.